Welcome, everyone. Um, my name is Amanda Williams, and I am joined today by Jim Zobel, the MacArthur Memorial's archivist. And today is January 26, 2023. It is the 142nd anniversary of General MacArthur's birth. And as General MacArthur's 163rd, sorry, it is the 163rd anniversary.
43rd.
100. Okay, I'm just going to start over here. Welcome, everyone. It is the 142nd third. I can't get this right today.
It's 2023.
Okay. All right. And so, as General MacArthur's biographer D. Clayton James stated, MacArthur's role in the tactical situation on Luzon in January 1945 was an amazing reversal of his conduct on Leyte. And although he exerted pressure on 6th Army Commander General Walter Krueger on both occasions, during the Leyte operations, he largely remained at headquarters. On Luzon, though, with Manila within his reach, just weeks before his 65th birthday, he was dashing around from one sector to the other, sometimes even assuming personal command of operations. And biographers have chalked up this behavior to the idea that he had this great desire to celebrate his birthday in a newly liberated Manila. Now, that doesn't exactly happen that way. And so that's what we're going to talk about today, the drive to Manila in the context of that January 26, 1945 birthday. So, Jim, could you just start us off, give us a layout of what's happening at this point in the war in the Philippines?
Well, in the Pacific, of course, the campaign on Leyte is at least in MacArthur's mind, drawing to a close. You're gonna be fighting there till probably about March or April of 1945. But come December, he had switched out the 6th Army, which was under General Walter Krueger, for Robert Eichelberger's 8th Army. And so 8th Army will take over the operations there while Krueger starts planning for the invasion of Luzon. Of course, they had all the debates between the Army and the Navy, the Pearl Harbor Conference, about where they would go, Formosa versus the Philippines. You know, they decided to go into Leyte about October 3rd, even though Admiral King still wanted to go Formosa. It was about October 3rd that they gave MacArthur the go-ahead to start planning for Luzon, to move in there. And so MacArthur will task Walter Krueger with this campaign. So while that's going on, Nimitz's forces, of course, will be ending up like the Peleliu operations, and they'll be getting ready to work towards Iwo Jima. You've got the Strategic Air Force that's in the Marianas now. They're bombing Japan with the B-29s. They're still using the high-level bombing raids, so it hasn't become as effective. It's going to be once Curtis LeMay gets there and they start going for those low-level strikes. But in terms of what MacArthur's doing, he's starting to look at Luzon and the invasion of Luzon. Out of 18 million Filipinos, 8 million of them live on Luzon. It's the main battleground. You have to take that in order to be able to have the air bases you need to interdict all the naval shipping that goes between Japan and the Southeast Indies. MacArthur had said that he would be able to do this as easy from Luzon as the Navy would from Formosa. So going to Luzon is a strategic, as well as for MacArthur, it's that moral "I shall return," thing. The Filipinos are starving there. They know that. And they need to get back there. There are the POWs there. MacArthur is very intent on liberating all those that are still left. Japan has moved most of them out by hell ships by now. But at this point in the war, they're looking to get on Luzon, establish themselves, and make that the large base that will come to be used for the invasion of Japan.
Okay. Right around this time, I think MacArthur and General Krueger have different ideas of what is going to happen with Manila. Can you give us an explanation for this?
Well, Luzon as well. And it mainly comes down to intelligence estimates, how many they believe are actually on the island of Luzon. With Leyte, because you couldn't get the air power in there originally, when they went in there, the Japanese had the 16th Division, which was about 15,000 men. But Tokyo was intent on making Leyte the battleground, the Tennouzan, the main battle for the Pacific. And so Yamashita, though he didn't want to, Yamashita wanted to just hold Luzon and have a mobile defense there. Higher headquarters made Yamashita pump about 50-some thousand troops into Leyte. As well, because they have to do that by sea, thousands went down. Air power was able to, sink a great many of these transports, and thousands of Japanese soldiers went to the bottom of the ocean. And so as you're moving to the point where you're going into Luzon, MacArthur's intelligence chief, Charles A. Willoughby, thinks there's maybe about 150,000 Japanese on Luzon at the most. 6th Army G2, that's the intelligence chief for Walter Krueger, he believes that there are upwards of 234,000 Japanese that are on Luzon. This is a discrepancy of about 80,000 troops. The thing is that neither of them are right. There's about 260,000 Japanese that are on the island of Luzon. Signal intelligence has told MacArthur, as well as 6th Army, what they know about who's gone in there. They know that the Japanese have been putting troops in there, but they don't know if some divisions have made it. They know the elements are there. They think, oh, is the whole division there now? We don't know. We know this other division might be coming down there, but did they get there? So there's discrepancies like that. But as well, Willoughby thinks that upwards of 40 to 50,000 Japanese soldiers were drowned, because of those transports. He thought that they all got sunk. And so that Willoughby bases his intelligence estimates on the fact that he doesn't think there's as many troops there as there were before. Horton White, who's the 6th Army G2, says that no, they didn't lose that many, and we do believe that all these other troops are there. He's going to be a lot closer to it. MacArthur, of course, his whole career is, I have my operational concepts, and I don't care what intelligence tells me. I feel this is the way it's going to be. And when they have the conference about the plans to go into Luzon, there's no plan for the seizure of Manila, because they're 6th Army's deal is to get ashore, establish that base, because they're going to go into Lingayen, the same place that the Japanese landed earlier on in the war, and that will be the only base. And Krueger knows he's got to hold that. He has a good feeling that the Japanese, if they're not going to be defending right on the beaches, they're gonna make it hell to pay. And as well, Horton White, that 6th Army G2, he believes the Japanese are going to put up a big fight for Manila, and MacArthur doesn't. And so this is the discrepancy between the two. You've got Willoughby saying there are less. Does MacArthur really listen to Willoughby? He'll tell Clyde Edelman, who's Krueger's 6th Army Chief of Staff, that there have been 3 great intelligence chiefs in the history of warfare. Mine's not one of them. And so that's, MacArthur's estimate of that. And I think MacArthur he believes in his own experience and his own instinct more than anything else. And so he believes that, if Yamashita has lost these troops, if he hasn't, he's gonna pull back, try and hold a defense. And MacArthur believes that whole Tarlac Plain is going to be open. When you land at Lingayen, you got about a 50 mile wide corridor that's called the Tarlac Plain, goes right down towards Manila. It's about 100 miles away. And MacArthur believes they can just have this lightning strike that goes down straight at the heart of Manila to liberate the city. And Krueger thinks you're going to have a major fight just to get ashore, and eventually make it down there. And so it's a major discrepancy that'll play out once they actually land on Luzon.
Now, MacArthur has certainly had personal reasons to want to get to Manila as quickly as possible. Can you tell us about some of those?
Well, of course, it was his home. His mom dies there. His dad makes his career there. He meets his wife there. They get married. They have their only son there. They were living there at the Manila Hotel. MacArthur knows so many people in Manila, knows they're all locked up in, the San Tomas civilian internment camps. He knew all those people from Bataan, Corregidor. They don't know how many are left, if many at all. But MacArthur, that was his main thing in the push at the Pearl Harbor conference, was to liberate all these people. And he's going to be extremely restless the whole time. He can't sit still because he believes that, he owes this to a lot of these people. Yes, he wants to be in there on his birthday. MacArthur is very much a person that believes in anniversaries. He believes in timing and all these different things, and he believes that the Japanese are not going to put up a big fight for Manila. They'll be there, but then they'll let go of it as soon as the Americans get there, because he believes that the Japanese are so disorganized, at this point, from guerrilla records. The guerrilla messages that are coming in from all those guerrillas on Luzon, they tell them that everybody's pulling out to the north. Signal intelligence has told them that Army headquarters has closed in Manila as early as January 5th. They know that by the 6th, all Army headquarters have closed in Manila, have pulled out. Right after they make that landing on the 9th, they know that they've destroyed their cryptographic equipment. The Navy has, and so his belief is that all these people are pulling out. You've got some guerrilla people saying you got maybe 5,000-6,000 in Manila, but you're going to have 20,000 there. And this was what Horton White was warning against. This was what Krueger, has a good feeling for. But MacArthur just he feels that he has to get there to liberate all these people, and what better way to do it than on my birthday.
So we've obviously talked about some of the personal reasons,
Yeah.
and I think you've started to touch on this, but I mean, there's some pretty good kind of military reasons to get there as quickly as possible too, though, aren't there?
Well, halfway down that Tarlac Plain, of course, is Clark Field, and that's your main bomber base. That's the one that can hold a lot of the weight. I mean, they'll build other ones at San Marcelino and a couple other places on Luzon later. But MacArthur has promised the Navy that he'll have bombers there in time to support the Iwo Jima operations. And so he has promised that he'll get that within, and have all the way down to Manila by the end of 4 weeks. For all that to be taken care of. So that's one of the main things he needs. But as well, one of the main reasons why Krueger's so cautious is when they land at Lingayen, that's their only base. And Krueger knows that. And the thing is Yamashita is just to the left up in the mountains, and he doesn't want to go on some willy-nilly drive, or lightning column drive at Manila and leave that base open before he has enough troops there. And so he's not going to want to move until, he has more troops that land there. Now, the thing is that Lingayen base there's no docks there. There's no harbor there. You're using these causeways. You're using, transports to get supplies in. You've got 2 corps that are going to land there. And after a couple of days, you had this big storm come in that destroyed all the causeways, and you were using one river to support two corps, there with supplies. And so you have to have Manila Bay, you have to have the Manila harbor front to be able to bring in enough supplies to support 250,000 troops, as well as the starving population of Manila. Much less the Philippines. So yes, you need to have both those places, but Krueger is right as well that without Manila, Lingayen is the most important thing to all of them, because that's the only place that supplies are coming in. So he's very cautious because he doesn't want to get away from that base and then have Yamashita come sweeping out of the mountains to take it all. So it's a dichotomy of what people think. It's a dichotomy of what they know, as far as how many and who's there, and what they can do. And whereas MacArthur is always the bold person, let's act right now and get this thing cleared up. Krueger is that perfect balance of caution, and always has been throughout New Guinea. People will say, oh, he's too stoic, he's too lumbering, he has to have everything perfect like George McClellan. Well, good for him. Because that's what keeps MacArthur going the whole time, as far as I'm concerned. So,
All right. So in these final weeks of January, this is where the biographers are saying that MacArthur's kind of dashing around from one sector to another. Can you give us or share with us some anecdotes about MacArthur during this period?
well, they come up on that convoy, and he's with them. That's going to come up around the west coast of Luzon, go into Lingayen. They're going to be hammered by kamikazes the whole time. His British liaison officer, Herbert Lumsden, he'll be killed on the New Mexico, right on the bridge as a kamikaze slams into that. Bill Chickering is I think he was a CBS guy. If you look at the picture of MacArthur reading that speech on Leyte into that handset, Chickering standing right behind him. So he knows all these people that are getting killed on these kamikazes. He's seeing, you know, the torpedo runs on the Boise, which he's on. And then they get into Lingayen Gulf, and you've got all these suicide craft working there. They land on the 9th. Krueger will put in both those both those corps of 4 divisions. You've got the 1st Corps on the left under Swift, and the 40th and the 14th under Griswold on the right. And the thing is that Griswold's corps is going to be able to make a move pretty quick because they got nobody. You know, Yamashita's pulled back. He's not going to defend those beaches, and they're able to drive real quick. Whereas that group under Swift on the left, they're going to have a hard time because they're going to be hitting all those Yamashita places, you know, that have got these guys in the mountains holding up their drive on the left side. And so they're going to have to throw in the 158th Regimental Combat Team and a lot more troops. They got the 25th Division on reserve to throw in there. But the thing is MacArthur comes in on the 9th, and of course he wants to be there on the shore. So he goes in at about 2 o'clock in the afternoon. The big thing there is the CBs had that sand berm that was built for him to land on. MacArthur wants that photo opportunity, you know, like at Leyte, knows that if you get that on the front page of every newspaper, you're going to, you know, have more people talking about his theater, get him more people and whatnot. He knows how to use the press. And so he tells the coxswain, hey, don't go to that berm, go land at the beach, you know, where all the photographers are. And that's where Carl Meidens takes that famous portrait. He lands on Blue Beach, right around San Fabian. That's right where the 6th Division had gone in. He goes to see General Patrick at his headquarters there, tries to go to Dagupan, but the bridge is blown on the river, so he goes back to the ship. He'll come back the next day. He'll tour all 4 division headquarters there, and this is the way he'll be for the rest of the campaign, you know, in the front of where everybody is. On the 12th, they have a big conference on the Boise, and Krueger comes to see him with all these other, you know, officers. And they have the big fight again over intelligence estimates. And MacArthur's like, drive to Manila right now. And Krueger's like, nope, not going to move. I'm waiting until I got my guys here. Next day, MacArthur puts his headquarters ashore. And he's right there at Dagupan now. He's going to start, you know, visiting all these places. And the thing is Krueger puts his headquarters, you know, to the east of him, but MacArthur's capable of visiting it as much as he wants. And so he'll be there the 17th, the 18th, the 19th, get this thing moving. You know, in 10 days, they had moved, the 14th Corps had moved 50 miles inland already, but Krueger was worried because he's having all these fights on the left side. Finally, MacArthur's, you know, can't get Krueger to move, but he's not going to order him. And that's the thing about MacArthur. You know, he uses every trick up his sleeve to get somebody to do something, you know, and either he'll relieve him or he'll, you know, or he'll just let him do what he wants. And that's what MacArthur does, what he wants. At one point, Krueger, you know, I heard from his aide, took off his hat and threw it on the ground. It's like, I've had it, you know, you do it the way you want it. And MacArthur came up to him, was like, no, you do it the way you want. You know, everything's fine. You know, this is your drive. But he'll say he's disgusted. He'll, you know, Sutherland will be like, let's get rid of Krueger. But it, you know, he's waiting for those people. About the 19th, the 20th, they make Krueger puts the word in for the drive on Clark Field. They'll get to Clark Field about halfway down that taller plain, and that's where they run into the Kembu group. And you've got 30,000 Japanese all dug in, ready to fight this thing out for the next couple of weeks. The 40th Division is going to get a mess there. MacArthur will be going right up there looking for firefights. You know, where's the action? He'll hear it. They'll drive right in the middle of it. He'll get out in the middle of it. You know, he'll find a wire on the ground. This is an American signal wire. Well, no, it's Japanese one. You're about to put yourself into a, you know, Japanese headline. And then on the 28th, they go to a place where the 25th Division, 161st Regiment is, and they're in a serious firefight for this place called San Manuel. The Japanese had dug in their tanks, just so the turrets are showing. It's all, you know, there to fight to the death. And this 161st gets in a big firefight. MacArthur's right at the front with James Dalton there, who will get killed later. But MacArthur, you know, is as everybody says, standing tall. Nobody can tell him to take a hit, and you know, to hit the ground, that is, and you can see there are pictures of him that day, and everybody's eating dirt. MacArthur's standing there looking at a map, and they said they got attacked there, and that's where he'll get his 3rd Distinguished Service Cross is right there. But the big thing is, because Krueger doesn't want to move, MacArthur moves his headquarters 25 miles ahead of the lines, down to Tarlac at Hacienda Luisita, and come on, get this thing moving down here. And but Krueger waits until they can't make it in on his birthday. And Krueger even says in his book that he knew that MacArthur had to stomach a lot of disappointment because he wanted to be there on his birthday, but they just couldn't make it happen. And it's not till the next day, that the 27th, that the 32nd Division and the 1st Cavalry Division land, and that's when Krueger's like, okay, now we can do this. And that's when they start putting together all the liberation of the prisoner of war camps and everything. But yeah, they're fighting the whole time. And Krueger's he's got the backbone. I don't care if I'm making you mad. This is the way we're doing it, and if you don't like it, get rid of me. And MacArthur doesn't. And Eichelberger will never understand why Krueger gets a 4th star and he does not. Because MacArthur starts racing the two against each other, to get Krueger moving. Right at this point.
And Krueger never complains publicly. I'm not even sure he would have complained privately that much about being pushed that hard. I mean, I guess that one moment when he throws his hat down, but
Yeah.
he seems to just kind of take it in stride, and he's just.
Well, I think he had seen what happened to Eichelberger when he tried to get all the headlines and publicity, back at Budagoda, and Eichelberger was out of the picture for about a year.
Right. Almost fatal. Yeah.
And he, and Krueger's not the kind of guy that wants a lot of publicity. He's very, he's a guy born in Germany. He's very reserved. He's very to himself. And he had gone from being a enlisted man, a private. He served under Arthur MacArthur there in the Philippines, at the turn of the century, and then makes his own way. So he's not going to make waves. He'll always say that MacArthur was the voice they needed to make things work. And Krueger and MacArthur will say that Krueger was the best general of World War II. Even though they have all these problems, at this point.
Right.
Yeah.
I'm sure, though, Krueger was probably just silently praying in his head a lot that MacArthur wouldn't get killed somewhere during this.
Yeah, man.
All right.
He was, and Egeberg says that as well, that he put himself in so many situations where people could have easily, taken shots at him. And MacArthur was like, it's all a matter of timing. I've been doing this for 50 years. I was on the battlefield every day in France. You can get kind of an idea that those guys are talking to each other. They see me. Okay, now move, and,
right.
And that's the way he looked at it. But, but he would also say, no bullet was made for me. So, I mean, there's a lot of major amount of self-confidence,
Man of destiny.
in his
Okay.
mind. Oh yeah. Yeah.
All right. So now, a lot of people always bring up the idea that he's planning this very elaborate parade for himself to enter Manila in triumph on his birthday. So it's essentially a liberation of Manila / happy birthday MacArthur parade. Is there any truth to the whole idea of a planned parade?
Oh yeah.
What's the story behind?
Yeah, we do have the plan for it. I mean, it's after his birthday, but it's about February the 2nd that this plan is made. The thing is that when the 32nd and the 1st Cavalry Division came into Luzon, they immediately tasked the 1st Cavalry Division with this flying columns that go down to Manila, and it's about 3 serials. Now, they had just sent the 6th Army Rangers to rescue those last 500 POWs at Cabanatuan. That were left. All the rest of them have been taken out by the hell ships. But then MacArthur, as well as Krueger, tasked this guy Vern Mudge, who runs 1st Cavalry Division, and he tasked William C. Chase to take these troopers down to Manila. And the voice is to bounce around the Japanese, go around the Japs, get through, get down to Manila, and get to free the prisoners of Santo Tomas and liberate Malacañang Palace. And they bounce around, but they're hitting a lot of activity as they move down there as well. MacArthur has the 37th Infantry Division that had been in that 14th Corps, while the 40th Division was taking care of all that Clark Field group. 37th was pushing down towards Manila on Route 3, whereas you got the 1st Cav come down Route 5. and they're hitting a lot of activity too. All the bridges are blown, you know, outside of Manila, getting into the city. And so they're starting to realize that you've got something going on. And then on February 3rd, when the first cavalry, you know, bust through the gate, the second serial bust through the gate of Santo Tomas, later that morning, early morning, you know, like 2, 3 in the morning of the 4th, 37th Cavalry finds all those POWs at Bilibid prison. And that's where the civilian guys from Baguio have been brought down, and you had about 800 American POWs from Bataan Krueger are still there. But then the fires start, and the Japanese are burning all of North Manila, and you've got about 5,000 army troops are there. You know, it's not just the navies. Iwabuchi, Sanji Iwabuchi, that rear admiral that will control Manila, 31st, you know, special base commander. He's got 16,000 Japanese Marines, but he's got a lot of army guys that are, you know, working with him as well. And they start burning that north of the city. So, I mean, they know something's going on right now. The Japanese are still there. They have not left. And so when you're planning this parade, it keeps going on. You know, the planning for it keeps going on. And MacArthur is almost like kind of oblivious to what's going on in Manila. You know, it's not till he doesn't get down there till the 7th, because he wanted to go in with the first troops, wanted to be with them more than anything. But he got to this place called Novaliches, and the bridge had been blown right after that second serial went across. So he was stuck outside the city for like 3 days after the serials had gone into the city. When he comes in, you know, he goes to Bilibid prison, and he sees the POWs that are still there, and, you know, can't say anything to them really. But then he goes to Santo Tomas and sees all the prisoners there. It's ecstatic. You know, it's just totally crazy. There's 3,000 civilians there that are just going nuts. MacArthur knows so many people that are there, but the city's burning now. And then he goes to Malacañan Palace, which is right on the Pasig River, and he's still in his mind, you know, saying, I could take it's almost like I could take a patrol across and take the city right now. And so his mind, he believed that they would start pulling out. So this is February 7th, and they're still planning this parade, you know. And I think on the 9th, Eichelberger, who's down at the south because they had landed the 11th Airborne below the city on the south at Nazugbu on the 31st, and they're driving up at the south of the city, and Eichelberger's with them, and he sends a message to MacArthur on the 9th, yeah, I'll be there for the parade. And so they know they're having heavy fighting there. They know that the Japanese have this Genko line on the south, which they're starting to man, you know, all these pillboxes and everything. And it's not until, I think, Bill Dunn, the CBS guy, you know, who was in that picture of the landing at Leyte, you know, goes back to headquarters at Hacienda Luisita and says, you know, what are y'all talking about? You know, Manila's burning. This place is about, you know, to be a conflagration. Somebody's got to go tell him, you know, exactly what's going on. And I think MacArthur just didn't want to believe it. You know, he couldn't believe the Japanese were going to do this, you know, just destroy everything for no reason whatsoever, and just start gunning down everybody, pulling off these massacres in so many different places. And it wasn't just one guy. They were all in on it, you know. And so I think that MacArthur felt that once they made the pressure on that the Japanese would leave, but they weren't leaving, you know. And people have said, oh, they should have left some way for the Japanese to get out, you know, because they put that ring around. They didn't want to get out, and they weren't going to get out. You know, they were there to die to the last man, and that's what they were there for. And signal intelligence has pointed that out, you know, exactly that's the truth. So this parade thing was just ridiculous. You know, I think it goes back to that MacArthur never, you know, there are not 400,000 Chinese in Korea, you know, beginning of the war. They are not going to attack till April of 1942. He'd get these things in his head, you know, and they wouldn't leave until the realities, you know, they're staring him in the face. And, you know, he just kept saying, I didn't want this to happen. This is not what I wanted to happen. This is why I left it an open city in 1942, 41, because, you know, we knew that this is what was going to happen. And you just got, you know, savage, brutal battle for the city.
It's kind of a pattern, I think, with him, as you just laid out, just sometimes an inability to actually believe what's happening because it's so far outside what he thinks should be happening.
Yeah.
But Do we know, did anyone go to him and say, look, you've got to cancel this parade? Do we
Well,
know how?
that's what Dunn did, I think. That
Okay,
Bill Dunn, the CBS guy, finally gets everybody
okay.
shaken up. Because the Hacienda Luisita is probably about an hour north of Manila. But it's right around that. After MacArthur, because once MacArthur goes to visit Santa Tomas, all those people thought they were out of danger, and all of a sudden the Japanese start shelling the place and kill 30 or so more internees there who had made it all the way through the war, and now they're going to kill it. So I think it's that more than anything wakes everybody at headquarters up. That the Japanese aren't leaving. They're there to stay.
So when is Manila actually liberated?
Not until the first few days of March. The Japanese, the First Cavalry Division and the 37th, they surround the city. They move through the city, block by block, house by house, floor by floor of buildings, pushing the Japanese. Japanese fight to the death in most of these places. A lot of those big buildings were those concrete structures. They were made to withstand typhoons and earthquakes, which Manila is so prone to, and they'd put all that naval hardware sunk in Manila Bay into those buildings. And MacArthur would never let them bomb the city with airplanes, but artillery finally after the 14th, they had to let it go. It's like General Beetler was the commander of the 37th Division, said that I wasn't going to go home and tell some Ohio mother that her son got killed because we tried to save the building. And so the Japanese hold up in Intramuros, that walled city, the ancient walled city built by the Spanish in the 1500s. The walls are 25, 30 feet thick in places, and artillery just blasts it. They put Japanese Nisei outside the walls, saying to them, surrender, you're just facing nothing but destruction. But that's what they wanted. They'd murdered some 3,000 people there in Fort Santiago and elsewhere all throughout Intramuros, and then they fight to the death, and it's just not till the second, they clear that out, and they clear out all those government buildings. Iwabuchi commits suicide in the agricultural building, shoots himself in the head, and everybody else fights to the death. I think they had, a few hundred prisoners out of 16, 20,000.
So MacArthur obviously does not get the parade. He obviously then enters a Manila that has just been absolutely devastated by some of the worst urban fighting ever. What is his reception like when he does enter Manila?
Well, that's what's so amazing, because Bonner-Fellers talks about meeting refugees who don't have any house, they don't have any food, they don't have anything, and all they can say is, God, thank you for saving us. And Fellers was like, how could anybody be thankful, for what's happening here, but that's what they felt, because they saw the Japanese murdering everyone, and they knew if they didn't make it to American lines, they would probably end up the same way themselves. The Japanese were very thorough in their preparations for defense. I mean, they had dug wells in the bottom of places. They had food enough to last for months. If nobody had gone in and cleaned them out, who knows what could happen if they had been there for months after, that, and they didn't clear them out. So that's, the greeting of MacArthur and the troops is ecstatic by all Filipinos, and a lot of them had a very hard time understanding that, because the whole city was turned to ashes, ashes. Yeah.
Any final thoughts?
Well, it's interesting, with the way the war was going, they had thought it was going to end in Europe, but right at this time, they're right in the middle of the Battle of the Bulge. They got stopped in the Ardennes, and as well, the Russians stopped right outside of Warsaw right at this time. So it was very much a big pickup thing for back home, because they saw that, hey, we're getting there, we're getting closer to Japan, and it brought MacArthur very much to the headlines. I think the next day, tomorrow is the anniversary of the liberation of Auschwitz. The Russians go in right about this time. So it was a big thing for them going back to Luzon, because that was the names that everybody knew from 1941, 1942. and it really brought the Pacific Theater back to the fore of American thinking.
Well, thank you, Jim, and thank you to everyone who joined us today as we commemorated the 143rd anniversary of General MacArthur's
And it's the 59th anniversary of our opening.
and the 59th anniversary of the MacArthur Memorial. That's correct. So thank you again, and we will be back in maybe another month or so.